Figure out what problem you're trying to solve for your customer. Pure and simple. And if the problem is not migraine level, go and find another product to sell, because you're just going to be in a mass of red ocean of competitors.
You're listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience, a podcast dedicated to helping executives train their sales and marketing teams to optimize growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. Let's accelerate your growth in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. I'm your host, Cory, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Phillip Swan. He's a prominent figure in the field of GTM strategy and product development. He's currently serving as the Chief Product Officer and Go-to-Market Chief at the AI Solution Group. He has extensive experience in launching innovative products and driving business growth across sectors. And prior to joining the AI Solution Group, Phillip held several senior positions, including the likes of CRO, Chief of Staff, which I want to dive into in a little bit, and Senior VP at PCC Wireless. Phillip, welcome to the show.
Hey, Cory, pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me to be on.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm excited for our conversation. So first off, help our audience get to know you a little bit better. You've got a kind of a unique resume, right? A career that spans like all of the whole revenue engine and product development. So, tell us what that is like and what kind of initially attracted you to what some might think of as wildly different roles.
Exactly. So throughout my whole life, there's been, since a young kid, has always been learn it all kind of a mode. So it's not know it all, it's about learning it all. I'm an avid learner. And it started off life from, building my own electronics when I was a teenager. And there's some funny stories in there, but all the way through to, becoming an engineer. I studied math and computer science because I knew I wanted to travel the world, and I didn't, becoming a doctor, which was the family business, was not in my cards because I couldn't travel, and that was my goal. And so throughout my life, it's always been innovation, and it's always about, it's more than innovation, it's about pioneering. I've been blessed in my life to have been forward-thinking enough to be in advance of certain industries. So mobile is a good example of that. Back in the days when I was working for the government, I got involved in communications work that evolved into what became wireless technology today. And very early days of that, and I worked for several wireless companies, communications, voice over IP. My company pioneered voice over IP, a company called Telegene Networks, which we sold to Texas Instruments for $1.6 billion. Then I went to Microsoft, where I pioneered 3 businesses for them, mobile pre the Nokia acquisition, which I was against, by the way, but that's the reason why I was no longer at Microsoft, and other industries like internet, and focus through. And so AI, how I've gotten here is I've had multiple roles in each organization. I started off life as an engineer. I used to write code. Then I wanted to manage engineering teams. Then I wanted to learn how to actually design products and build products. Then I've always been a seller. I'm a big believer that everybody is a seller. It doesn't matter who you are in the organization. So you're selling something, whether it's internal or whether it's trying to get your point across. So it's all about capturing the souls and minds of people's imagination that the art of the impossible is actually possible. And I first started programming in artificial intelligence in 1981. AI is not new. AI fundamentally has been around since a white paper in 1934. And, the term artificial intelligence got coined in 1954 at the Dartmouth conference. There are things called the Turing test, which was Alan Turing, which some of you may recall as the person that helped crack the Enigma codes that helped the Allies win World War II. He came up with the concept of macrocomputing. All of this is a story. What has changed? And why AI hasn't been successful truly in the sense that it was, is the amount of processing speed and the amount of data that's available today. Our whole thing moving forward is really about pioneering. It keeps society safe, humanity safe, and we are focused on serving our customers, which are Fortune 500 enterprises, with safe and responsible AI. And this has been a journey for me. So I've held both doing roles and management roles in all components of the business. So this is a culmination of decades worth of experience of me wanting to learn it all. And that's the fundamental theme here, is how I've gotten here, because I'm just a sponge for knowledge.
I love it. And I'm curious now, does this, what I'm sensing as a kind of like DIY ethos, does it extend to other things too? Like if your sink goes down, are you in there? If your car goes down, are you underneath it?
No longer do I get under my cars for that, because everything's now electric, but that's a whole separate story. But yes, I'm a tinkerer, definitely a tinkerer, right? I experiment, right? Even in my office, I've got experimental hardware. Is this like, I'm kind of this mad scientist in a way, right, of keeping things going. But I'm always trying stuff, because you never know what works. You never know what the customer is going to, glom onto and to really do. So it's always about experimenting, never being fearful of the result. Yes, you want to be concerned about keeping your customers safe and secure, no questions about that. But always be testing, making things better for them, right? Some companies do not want change, right? So you adapt to change in other ways that make sense for them. So it's all about understanding your customer. What are I don't talk in terms of pain points. I talk in terms of migraine-level headaches, right? We've all had one, right? Even though if it's not technical migraine, we've all had a really bad headache where we would literally have paid $1 million if we had it in our pocket to get rid of that headache. Those are the problems that I like to solve, because one, it's real life, it's a real problem. Two, it's equated to like this big pot of spaghetti that's in the pot. All you're doing now is taking that spaghetti out and lengthening the string. So you're now making the complex simple. And you make the complex simple and easy to understand. You can break it down. You can now start solving that with processes and technology. So it starts with people. AI does not replace people. AI augments people. And that's the key thing to do. The magic to AI is human expertise. That is the magic of when that happens. The second part of it, after people, is process. Do you have efficient process, right? In the world of ERP or enterprise resource planning, the reason why so many of those implementations were hard was you took existing broken processes and digitized them and made them even worse, right? So you're now amplifying the problem as opposed to making it simpler, right? Mm-hmm. And so we focus, not just we focus on the outcome for the customer, and then we work back and put a plan in place that gets us to that outcome. And it doesn't matter how outrageous your outcome that you're trying to do, because nothing is impossible if you plan it. And so this is the key thing, is open your minds. Let go of cognitive bias. This is the biggest trick that I've learned in the last 8 months, is letting go of cognitive bias. And because our world changes literally from hour to hour. This is how quickly it changes. Complete tooling switches every 3 months, at least, right? It's not just change, it's accelerated change. And you have to be ready for it, because if you're not, you're going to get yourself into trouble.
I think that's really important advice for people to hear, no matter, where they sit in the organization. Obviously, everyone's afraid of change. Obviously, it ruffles feathers. And at the same time, it's coming. And if you want to innovate, I love that approach. And kind of how I'm summarizing it in my own words is, nothing's really a black box. If you have the curiosity and you have methodical plan, you can really dive into almost anything, especially today, right? And the other thing that kind of struck me, Phillip, is you mentioned a differentiator that I haven't heard attached to AI before. And so you've got the safety and the responsibility and the innovation. I think a lot of people might think, I can maybe get 2 of those, but I can't get all 3. So what would your advice be to people looking to start their own journey to really capture all 3?
There's actually a 4th thing in there that we do as well. So you got the first 3 absolutely right. And the reason that I brought up, we also work through change management. So the AI adoption. So that is the 4th leg to the stool that we, the AI Solution Group, provide. And we're not a management consulting firm, but we have the expertise in-house. So one of our founders was the chief change officer at Microsoft. So he reported right to Satya Nadella as an example. His name is Alistair Lowe Norris. And so we understand change. We understand and how to get our solutions adopted within the enterprise. So back to your question, how do you advise somebody to do it? I advise somebody to do the same process that we look at. Rather than trying to pick a use case out of thin air, I actually think about what is a really big problem that I have never been able to solve and cannot be solved with AI. So let me give examples. So people, when you take on the wrong use case, your leadership, executive, C-suites on below, will be reluctant to take on a new project if it's not showing benefits to the organization, right? Or to the organization's customers in some way. And that could be in operational efficiencies, it could be in CSAT, it can be any number of ways. But what are the real applications for it? Well, the real applications like are in manufacturing, predictive maintenance. So the biggest problem, the nightmare of a plant manager is unplanned outages, whether that's due to breakage in the machinery, weather conditions, and other environmental issues. Unplanned outages cost billions a year. AI can help reduce and mitigate those risks significantly in that area. Think about transportation with the explosion of IoT devices, right? On, whether that's on trains or on trucks or wherever those are. You've got wealth and wealth of information. Think about the predictive maintenance now you can do on those, rolling stock or on the tracks or on the trucks itself. So to avoid crashes, to avoid delays, to avoid, and so you can now not only reduce your operational expenses, but increase customer satisfaction because the trains are running on time because you've got this, right? Those are just some examples of it. In financial services, early fraud detection, but therein lies bigger problems. You've got lack of fairness, lack of accountability, lack of transparency, and lack of explainability, otherwise fate, right? We solve all of those problems. The gap that we solve is safe and responsible AI as a service, right? This is where that is going to be, and building up true agentic systems. We are one of the first companies on the planet to have truly autonomous agents who are up and running and actually performing independent tasks with human in the loop. And I'm not talking, these are truly distributed, truly concurrent, highly parallelistic systems. So you've got multiple tasks going on at one time. So in the old SaaS model, I say old, is still around, SaaS tools do tasks, right? They perform a task. CRM, you got your list of products that are out there, thousands and thousands and thousands of SaaS companies out there. The difference, there's a paradigm shift going on right now. 2025 is going to be the year of the agent. And what that means for SaaS companies is that they have tremendous technical debt, with the way that they've built the products today. And that's kind of normal. Where we're coming at it, we have no technical debt. So we're able to take on zero legacy systems, from our standpoint, integrate with companies' legacy systems and truly agentify them into truly autonomous, with humans in the loop, safe solutions that are able to perform tasks and allow the human to actually focus on their superpowers, right? And everybody, as I tell my kids, everybody has your own superpower. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody has one. You just have to find it. And so once you find your superpower, everybody's got crap in their jobs that they have to deal with. Let AI handle that repetitive stuff, right? And stuff that you don't enjoy doing. I say crap, it has to get done, but it's stuff that you don't necessarily enjoy. Now you can focus on bringing joy into your work environment with the stuff you're really passionate about. And that's where AI can augment the human to really ensure you. The productivity gains that I've gained using AI, I've learned how to prompt engineer over the last 3 years, proper prompts, and it saves me 80% of my research time. 80%. It's massive. I don't do it for any of my writing because I want copyright. You cannot copyright your writing on that. But aside from that, I'm using AI in almost everything that I'm doing. And we as a company plan on at least 80% augmentation for every staff member in the company, which is how we're going to reach the revenue that we're targeting with 100 people or less. And we're not replacing people's jobs, we're just making everybody more efficient.
Yeah, I like that approach. So people are going to need jobs at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
As tempting as it might be to just look at, the whole revenue leader dance of we'll cut deep and then we'll hire back if we need to. It seems like some companies are cutting too deeply, too fast. And
so you're kind of bringing up an interesting point to discuss, right? So the old CRO method of, well, show me how many appointments you've made and how many calls you've made and all this, that's all nonsense in my book. It's all about it starts with pre-awareness of your brand, right? Not even awareness, pre-awareness, right? So you're not aware that your solution, I equate it to people driving around their neighborhood. They know the supermarkets in their neighborhood. Well, I go to this one for bread, that one for milk, and you know exactly where you're going to. So when you do need milk, I'm going there, right? I'm going to Kroger or to whomever my supermarket is in my neighborhood for this, and I'm going to Whole Foods for that, and I'm going to whatever, right? It's the same thing in the world across the board. So pre-awareness in our stage are things like thought leadership papers, right? Or things like webinars, or things like podcasts, and being parts of having strategic partnerships that we're involved with. It's the journey starts there, and really understanding your customer as well as, if not better than they understand themselves. So that you're not only wearing their shoes, you have this empathetic connection with the customer, that they feel connected to you because they feel that you understand them. We use the term Grok, which you may or may not have heard before, G-R-O-K. It comes from a 1960s sci-fi movie, big sci-fi fan, no surprise.
That's right. Okay, now I remember this now.
It's Robert Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land, and he introduced the term where the aliens would literally merge with the humans, and so they could Grok the humans. That was the term that came out. I equate it to a 365-degree view of your customer. When I say about grokking your customer, I mean, I want to understand everything about my customer so that I can better serve my customer, right? The better I know the customer, the better I can serve them. And so it starts at that pre-awareness stage, and really managing the data that you have with them to make sure it's anonymized and it's secure and private. All of that's prerequisites or table stakes. But so you can now serve them better in ways that they don't even know they need to be served. So Steve Jobs used to say it, people don't know what they want to buy until you show it to them, or words to that effect. That is a truism. It's why in the United States, people stage houses, right? Because people see it in genericized. Most other countries don't do that, by the way. Right? In the UK, where I'm originally from, people look at it as strange. What do you mean staging houses? What is that? What do you mean it's like? But you've got to show them the journey, right? It's not just the end destination, right? The end destination might be this nirvana, but you've got to show them the baby steps that they can get there. And back to one of your earlier questions about how do you merge the two? It's like you take this big elephant of a problem and you attack it one small piece at a time, right? Until eventually, suddenly, I've got this irreversible momentum behind me, and this is part of actually what I'm in my spare time. I'm actually writing some books on go-to-market, which referring to as Go-to-Market Unleashed. And it's all about grokking the customer, and it's all about building that irreversible momentum where you just can't lose. You might not win every battle, but you're going to win. You're going to win the war. And business, unfortunately, is like war in many cases, right? I'm not saying there's violence and the death or any of that, but it's that everything needs to be coordinated. Everything needs to be planned. Everything needs to be operated. You can still be scrappy, but scrappy doesn't mean to say that you're random or example. We are so focused on our mission as a company and as individuals. That is, that's 90% of the problem, that everybody's focused on the problem. So all of your energy is going towards solving that problem. And that's what we love doing.
Yeah, that's a really impactful, kind of facet of things I want to dive into. I'm thinking, you started off, and I said, it sounds like your philosophy is nothing's a black box, which I love. You can dive into anything. And then, we dove into the CRO role a little bit and thinking, yeah, that was the old mentality. If you're not hitting your numbers, you're gone. Like, does that really work? And then I'm really intrigued by this pre-awareness stage of the customer journey, because it's something that I'm a big fan of. And at the same time, I know from a CRO, a CFO perspective, that can look like a black box. PR, all that thought leadership. So how can companies get around that and sort of
You
satisfy
got to get
that
around that by
skepticism?
bringing everybody onto the same page. And there's no better way to bring everybody on the same page than having shared KPIs and then being paid the same way. So what are some shared, I mean, now you're starting to talk my language, right? Which is like, how do you start measuring some of this stuff, right? So we talked about pre-awareness. We go pretty granular on our customer journey. So we start at pre-awareness, we go to awareness, learning, discovery, intent, all the way through to actually use and advocate. And for each stage, we go vertical. So that's horizontal. And each stage we go vertical as to what the customer actions are, what our actions are, how, and what KPIs do we measure success against those. I'm big into leading indicators versus lagging indicators. So yes, you have to measure ARR, MRR, CSAT, NPS. Those are important, but those are lagging indicators, right? Because the stuff you've done in the past has caused those effects. You want to know what the ones that I can actually turn the dial up on early enough in this, in the customer journey that I can have an outcome, a successful outcome, which for me, how we're measuring it, is closed won opportunities. That's all we're measuring, right? All the rest just backtracks in, right? You've got the right quality, and we don't even look at volume. We look at quality, right? We measure on quality. So I'm not measuring anything. We've eliminated, we will never have an SDR function in this company. That's all going to be automated, 100%. There's no reason to have an SDR team anymore, none. Customers don't actually want to talk to you until they're ready to talk to you. So people bugging them for appointments is not the right thing. It just creates friction. I'm into frictionless, seamless customer experience where it's calm, it's measured, and it's justified where people are ready and want to talk to you. And you can't dictate the time to do that. You can only get them ready to that point. You cannot have any influence on outside effects that go like, oh, I remember that name, the AI Solution Group. They do this. Yeah, because of all the pre-awareness stuff. I need to talk to them, right? That's the journey, right? And so it's all about, and you asked about the CFO, you asked about the CRO. It's everybody in the organization. So key performance indicators that I like for leading indicators. One is NRR, or net revenue retention, which is an index. And then the second is gross revenue retention. The reason why I have both is that when you have net revenue retention in of itself, it can be obfuscated. What these numbers show is if you've got a customer problem. And if these numbers aren't, because they're like, well, MRR is up, ARR is up, but our GRR is down and our NRR is down. Okay, Houston, we've got a problem. It's probably a big problem. We need to now double click into what that problem. Now the entire team, because everybody's measured on these two goals and paid on those two goals, and there are others as well. Suddenly the company, including the CFO and the CFO's team, is looking at customer satisfaction. They're looking at, how do I make this problem go away, right? And not just go away, resolve it to my client's satisfaction. Because there's nothing like having a real client problem for the client to say, okay, they solved my problem. I'm loyal to them now, right? Because they got me, right? Loyalty is hard to get. And once you've got it, you better retain it, right? I still have customers buying from me today that I sold to back in the 90s, right?
Wow.
It's because of the relationship, because it's not transactional, it's consultative. You're adding more value than the product that you're trying to sell to them, right? You're an added resource in their quiver of resources to help them get their job done. And when you get that trusted status, you now have established your beachhead in the company. And from there, it's now up to you to expand into that company by finding new opportunities and have your expansion roles going in there. So it's that traditional land and expand role. So those are metrics to look at. And so there are a handful of metrics that are real leading indicators that can really drive your business going forward.
It's excellent advice. And I want to dive into it a little bit because I see a disconnect sometimes. I think no one in a public place would disagree, right? No revenue leader is going to say, Phillip, you're wrong about that, But at the same time, if I had a dime for every time I've seen revenue leaders invest in sales and sacrifice customer success, I'd have $10 and change. So why is that still going on when we all agree that creating customer relationships has tremendous value?
Because companies themselves are not customer-centric. And I believe in customer centricity. Now, people talk to me like, you're full of crap, Swan. We are customer-centric. And I'm going like, no, you're not. And let me tell you why you're not. So you might think you are because you've got common KPIs between sales and marketing. That's only one place where you've got dissonance in the organization, right? And you may have some metrics in there like an SLA between sales and marketing about how leads are handled and lead scoring and all of that stuff. You really need to get down into the weeds and build up what are the things that are important that are going to drive there. So that, and this is the reason why we've got go-to-market to have both marketing and sales under me, so that the KPIs are all measured. As I'm interviewing for a head of marketing right now, and I told my lead candidate this morning, you're not going to have goals of number of miles, market acceptance leads, or MQLs that you want. I care about one thing and one thing only, and that's the number of deals closed. So now we work back, right? What do we need? Now we need to, suddenly the light bulb went on to her and it goes like, okay, if that's what I'm being gold on, I know what I need to do. Boom, right? It's taking the complexities, all the other stuff, while important, is irrelevant to the overarching goal, which is revenue. And the only way you get revenue in is by closing deals.
Yep.
That has not changed and will not change anytime soon.
Yep. I'd love to see the look on my head of marketing space, though. What do you say? Now you get them all in a room. Now you're going to be measured on closed won deals.
Oh, I didn't get that. That lead person was like, bring it on. I'm good.
Hey, you found a good one then, yeah? I imagine a lot of people would balk.
No, because what it means now is a responsibility of everybody, right, to ensure we're hiring the right people. So this goes back to we haven't spoken about this, but we have leadership principles in the company. So we interview to those leadership principles. Right now, we're being blessed because everybody in the company are people we've all either worked with or we've worked alongside. We've had some long-term professional standing with people, so we know the people. But our next layer that we're bringing on now, we don't. So we're interviewing to strong leadership principles. And it's relevant what those are. Each company will be different. But as long as you're interviewing to those and you're bringing candidates onto those leadership principles, and those leadership principles are right, you are going to be bringing the right people, and to use that old Jim Collinism of bringing the right people onto the bus. And it's, that was from a reference from one of his books, Good to Great. Jim Collins actually is from Colorado, Boulder. And he, amazing guy. I actually had him do a seminar for my team at Microsoft. Just absolutely amazing what we learned. And I've carried that forward. But back to the customer centricity, the whole organization has to be customer centric. And that starts at the board, the CEO, C-suite, all on down, right? And when you have all of that cascading up from a customer-centric perspective, then it doesn't matter whether you're in healthcare, pharma, manufacturing, telecom, gaming, you name the vertical. If you're not customer-centric, you've got revenue leakage. You just do.
Yep.
Because customers are not flocking to you. You're trying to hang on to your existing customers, in some cases for dear life. And that's not the place you want to do. You want your customers to be active, engaged. You're learning from them. You're learning with them. So we have this whole program of harvesting patterns, right? This is something that goes back decades for us, because we've all done this patterns and practices. In fact, my CEO and partner, he founded the patterns and practices business at Microsoft many, many years ago. And, so we understand this stuff, right? And, and it's how do we share these patterns with the rest of the world? And we do that through technology, right? We do that through our change management. We do that through our whole brand position, which is all about being safe and responsible, for not just society, but being good for the planet, because everything we're working on is to be efficient with our use of electricity and materials and everything else, so that we're bringing some level of sustainability into what we do.
Fantastic. I think that's getting overlooked a lot in the current conversation, so it's good to hear. Another thing I was struck by, it sounds like you all have a great system right now, and you're in a good spot as far as you've embraced the customer centricity. It's at the core of what you do. You have principles, leadership principles that speak to that. Those are your guide for hiring, growing the team when and where you need to. What if there's a company out there that's in a different situation? Maybe they have an acquisition recently, or maybe they've got a lot of people that were trained in a different way or come from a different side of things. How can you bring everyone kind of on board at once?
You're talking about if my company was, if a company was acquired and had been merged in, how do they manage that? Or
Yeah, instead of growing, from your leadership principles and, being in a position where like everyone's on board, then you can hire. What if you have people that are not on board or all over the place? What would be the first step?
This becomes a training exercise, a change management exercise, right? So part of the reason why people aren't engaged is they don't believe. Right? They're just there for a job, right? For a paycheck. And you're going to have that in many companies. So how do you eliminate that? Well, that's a problem for HR and leadership, how to get people motivated. What I like to do is, take those people and work with them to understand their superpowers. So go back to that superpower, right? What do you really enjoy doing? I know you're in this job, but what are you really enjoying? When it turns out, well, it's just because I'm good at it. What I really like to do is blah, right? Well, okay, let's get a plan to get you to blah. So now all of a sudden we go like, okay, this person and this company is now interested in me, what I'm interested in, and giving me a path forward. Okay, I realize that there's a job to get done here, and this is how we're going to get done, and I need to do that well in order to get this step. So it's almost like a reward. It's like a guaranteed reward. People have used OKRs in the past. You can use OKRs. It's a great proven system, but we tend to focus on the outcomes, because we meet often enough. We don't actually have OKRs because we're moving at such a pace. The OKRs would be out of date within an hour, quite literally. And I'm not exaggerating at the pace we're working. So it's about transparent communication for us. So we have we're 100% remote, but everybody talks to each other at least once a day, right? And we have the forums to do that, so we're all connected. And we do have our times when we are together in person, and we do that once a week where we have in-person meetings. Nothing beats getting on a whiteboard together, right? So we're scrappy about it. We don't even have an office. We go to a local fire station where we've got a conference room with 2 whiteboards in it, and we just work magic on those whiteboards. So we're scrappy, right? But we're focused. We're absolutely focused on the common mission. But going back to what we do is getting the best out of people by understanding them, by giving them a path to their future. And if there is no path to their future, you find a way for them to exit gracefully, not just slam the door in your backside on the way out, right? It's like you do things gracefully. And yes, it will probably cost you a little bit of more money to go and do that. But you know what? That's a good thing for your brand.
Yep.
Right? Treat people right? Back to my original premise, AI is not about replacing humanity. AI is about augmenting humanity. Humans still need to be humans with each other. We still need to be good to each other. We still need to be fair to each other. We still need to be responsible to each other, right? All the things that are good society. We have forgotten as a society how to talk to each other. Right? I'm not getting into a political discourse. I'm talking about a societal problem, right? And part of it started because of this access to technology. I grew up in the world that my telephone had a long cord on it, right? And that was a one phone in the house, right? So if my mother was on the phone, I couldn't talk to my friends, right? Email didn't exist, right? Voicemail didn't exist, right? We didn't even have a voice recorder for voice answering machine because they weren't even out in those days. So I've grown up in this world where I've fought for everything I have. Whereas I look at people, so I've got 2 sons in their late 20s, and they've grown up in today's world where resilience is not one of their superpowers because of whether it's social media, whether it's access to technology. It's just, if it's not instantaneous gratification, well, I'm not doing it. I've seen my kids give up things too early because they didn't get it right the first time. I'm going like, do you know how many times it takes me to get something right? It's at least 3, right? Even here, it takes me at least 3 rewrites of each PRD until I get it right? It doesn't happen by accident. And so learning some resilience, and I'm not trying to sound patronizing, but it's like, you know what? The world doesn't revolve around you. Right? It doesn't revolve around me. It doesn't revolve around you. We're part of a very large village, and I'm not trying to sound anything more than we just need to be good to each other. We don't have to like each other. We just need to be respectful to each other. And that accounts in business as well as in personal life, right? So I go back to, I've had relationships in business that date back to the early 90s that I still maintain to this day, right? And it's because of trust. It's because, we don't always agree, but when we don't agree, we agree that, okay, we're taking down this path, and there's no passive aggressiveness. So we have a zero tolerance for passive aggressiveness in our company, zero. And we've proven that point out where there were two people who were and were no longer with us, because it's like, it's not just about walk, it's not just about talking, it's about walking the walk. And every day, every single one of us, whether it's Mike, the CEO, myself, or Emma, we all have to deliver every single day. And get off your high horse. It's not a 9-to-5 job. I hate to tell you this, right? Yes, you can have other interests, and I still maintain my interests. My priorities in life are my family, my friends, my work, and then my hiking, because I'm an avid hiker. I'm in the mountains every single day, whether it's rain, snow, or shine. And I do that, I'm a happy camper. Solving complex business problems is what makes me happy. That is my happy spot outside of everything, right? And so all this other mundane stuff that I have to do, I get done, but I use AI for it.
So now, since we are reaching the end of our podcast, I've got a couple questions for you. And one I think I might know the answer to, but Phillip, if there's one piece of career advice you could give yourself 10 years ago, what would it be and why?
Find a really good mentor. Somebody who's ideally not in the business, but they could be in the business. This would be somebody, and I'm not talking about an executive coach, right? Although it could be an executive coach. I'm talking about a buddy who you can just ping on, right? I don't suffer from any addictive diseases like alcoholism or anything like that, but I do know people who have, right? And when you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're teamed with somebody, right? Who's, when things go pear-shaped, you can call that person, right? It's similar thing here. Find a mentor, somebody who's more senior than you, who's willing to give back to you because they see something in you that they either saw in themselves or they see some magic. Find somebody who's willing to do that. Chances are you're probably, for some people you're going to have to pay because that's what they do for their living. But try and find somebody who's basically, been there, seen that, done that, and who believes in you and is willing to donate time to you to help you be successful, right? Now, I was blessed very early on in my career that in my second job when I left working for the government, the gentleman who ran sales and marketing for this company, he and the CEO took me on as a mentee, and they really groomed me, and it was phenomenal. I had that early on in my career. There was a long period where I didn't have, so back to your early point, I wish I had it. I actually do wish I had a mentor 10 years ago because it would have helped me significantly in dealing with a particular business issue that I was dealing with, not relevant to this conversation. But right now, I'm blessed that my co-founders are as experienced and as wise, in different areas. So I've got them as my mentor. We mentor each other all the time. So it's I don't have an independent person doing it, but I have mentors, but they're within the company.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice, and advice that is worth repeating too, because especially when you're early on in your career, it can feel very awkward to try to establish those relationships. But at least in my experience, and I'm sensing in your experience as well, Phillip, that people are willing to give back.
Yeah.
Surprisingly willing if you make that reach. So.
And people who are more senior than I am, myself and everybody else, we're all humans, which means that we have the same physical needs as everybody else, right? So underneath all of this, we're hopefully nice people, we're hopefully good people, and we're hopefully willing to give back, right? And my ability to give back now is extremely restricted. So I have reduced my mentees down to one, because that's all I have time for, because I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right. And otherwise, it's not fair in that person. You're wasting their time. I do donate my time to him. I had several, but I eliminated it because he's really serious about taking advice and actually moving forward. And that's the other thing. Don't have a mentor if you're not serious about wanting to change, right? If you're just wanting somebody to say how good you are and how pretty you are and how good looking you are and how just like, oh, you're awesome and whoop, 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 and great. I'm going like, what the hell is all of this for? It's like succeeding in business is all about failure and learning from failures. And all the successful people, they're not telling you about all of the failures that they've had to get them to that point. And Dyson is a great example of a brand that did it. He made over 5,136 vacuums before he sold a single one. That's how many prototypes he made. Yes, that is a real number. I think it was 5,136 or something, or 34. I can't remember the precise number. It's right in there. The point is, that's resilience. Thomas Edison, how many times before he got the filament of the light bulb right? It was thousands. He nearly went bankrupt over it, right? Until he found the filament and carbon which caused the luminescence and gave the longevity. And then you've got to be stubborn. Stubborn, and it's stubborn not on change, but stubborn on my goal, right? What is my mission? What is the goal that I'm trying to achieve? And once you're in agreement, you don't move it. You go and achieve it. And once you've achieved it, you start figuring out what the next one is, and you keep that motion going. And you don't wait till this one's over until you figure out the next one. You've got to keep that motion going. And that motion in the beginning is going to be exhausting because your brain is not used to it. Your body physiologically is not used to it. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to go, oh my God, I can't do this. Get through it for 2 to 4 weeks, and miracles, I promise you, miracles will happen.
All right, I got one more question for you, and I think it's going to be a synthesis of many things we've talked about, but if you could share one piece of advice with revenue leaders to help them hit their targets, help them be more customer-centric, what would it be?
Figure out what problem you're trying to solve for your customer. Pure and simple. And if the problem is not migraine level, go and find another product to sell, because you're just going to be in a mass of red ocean of competitors. You want to find something where you are blue ocean, where you are the only people there and people have to come to you. And what we're doing at the AI Solution Group is blue ocean, because we're not playing where all these other AI horizontals or verticals are playing, right? We've got a whole different solution that we're bringing to market. And it's where nobody is playing. And we've got proof that nobody is playing there. And we've also got proof that it's a migraine level headache problem that we're solving. So figure that out before you take on a CRO job, right? Do your diligence in finding out, why do the customers love the brand? And if you can't find any customers who truly, genuinely love the brand, move on to your next opportunity.
I love it. Perfect. All right. Well, that's it. Phillip, thanks so much for joining us on the show. If people want to learn more about you, where can they go?
You can go to my LinkedIn profile, and it's in LinkedIn. It's Phillip with 2 L's -Swan, S-W-A-N. On there's my weekly newsletter, the Go-to-Market Edge, where I talk about AI. Please subscribe to that. DM me is the way to do that. And I promise I do respond on that. Best way to reach me.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Cory.
You've been listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.